Let's go ahead and begin settling ourselves into a still and quiet meditative space. Hopefully, like me, you're in a still and quiet meditative space on the outside. But in the very least, you want to construct your body like a Daoist temple, stable and comfortable, easily upright and balanced. And similarly, the way that anything becomes useful is the emptiness inside. So we quiet our mind. We allow our mind to become empty of all of the things usually filling it up. And as your mind becomes clear and empty, it becomes useful. Pause for a moment and slowly drain all of the noise as best you can, letting go of whatever it was during the day that captured your attention. And simply be here now. Likewise, make space emotionally. Remember, emotions in Chinese medicine are simply the movement and the non-movement of qi in your system. Qi rushes up and we give it a certain emotional label. Qi rushes downward and we call it something else. And instead, as we become settled and clear and our emotional heart becomes free, there's this sense of clarity, emptiness, as it were, that allows us to find room to uncover this deeper sense of peace that's available. As your mind settles, as your emotions become clear and settled, like clear water, allow your body to settle as well. The last few weeks we've been describing the various channels and vessels throughout the body. We want to sit in such a way that allows all of them to be open, to be fully expressed and free in their movement. So in this case, as we become empty, we are becoming empty of obstruction, empty of tension. We become free of all of that. And what's left is this sense of openness, softness, a quality of deep relaxation and ease. We make room for the breath as well. So as the torso opens, allow the breath to flow in and out effortlessly. Each time you exhale, you can exhale through your mouth if you'd like, and allow that emptying to continue through release, through softening. Don't try to do or to force anything, because that just adds. We are becoming empty. And then every time you inhale, this sense of stillness deepens. Noticing this deep, settled stillness and freedom that comes from this level of letting go. Deeper and deeper level of ease with every breath. Notice the relative freedom of your breath. The more space you make, the softer and the finer the breath becomes. It tends to slow down. But if you try to make the breath soft or slow, you actually obstruct it. Instead, create the conditions within which the breath becomes this very fine thread that you can't even feel any longer. The breath slows down and becomes so small that it's as though it disappears. If you let go enough. And when you're ready, we're going to move through the sequence on the head take off my headphones here. And as I remind people in every class, if you are new to this particular set, you're just joining us online, you're not quite sure what's going on, please do check down below the video in the comment section. And there you'll find a link to a video introductory set for this particular Qigong method, this Qigong massage method. And that will allow you to understand what we're doing well enough to join us in these live sessions without feeling lost. Otherwise, it might feel a bit overwhelming or confusing. want some of my tea?
No, I'll give you more.
Oh, okay. Thank you, though. Good morning, Del, or good afternoon. Nice to have you here. Give me a D, an E, an L, an L. Qigong family. Mel was a cheerleader and is in the background. 1, 2. Woo-hoo. Settling deep into your body. Today, the emphasis is upon this new level of practice, now that we've passed the halfway point. Within some of my martial schools growing up, there was this point that the teachers would hit. I'm thinking of one school in particular, American Kempo school, Kashi Kempo school. And when we hit the midway point in the system, which was a purple belt for that system, the teaching completely shifted. It changed from them treating you nicely to them treating you not so nicely. And there was a different level of expectation. And so we will make use of that method as well here. That now that we know, for instance, about the general shape and nature of the channels, the general shape and nature of the underlying vessels within the body. We've spent time in posture. We've learned how to release some of the big structures, how to let our mind begin to soak into our body. And so now there is a different level of possibility that you may be noticing. And one of them is within stillness. As well, one of them is in the capacity to maintain an open body as we practice. And so with our knowledge, for instance, of the channels running down the arms, can we continue to practice in a way that is always allowing all of the channels in the arms to stay open, no matter what, without shortening or blocking or contracting anything? Everything is always long. No matter what we're doing, there's this sense of connection and throughness. The same with the legs, the same with the torso. We're always making space for the breath. And so for the beginners, that still may be quite a difficult thing to ask. But I do want to ask that people begin to look for those changes. As with this practice, at least, we become advanced beginners.
Level 2, let's go.
Level 2. Level 1B. So, softening through and open. And whatever you're doing, don't close the channels in your hands, on your fingers. Don't grip, don't tighten, don't break the line of the elbow. Even when we're sitting cross-legged on the ground, the leg channels are through and connected. Even when we're folded forward, the vessels that allow the breath to flow are open, disinhibited. No matter what we do, we stay through, connected, whole. You can spend a bit of time around the breast tissue, especially if you have more breast tissue than I do, and it's something of a necessity for you. So as you lift one arm, here in this case, it's very common for people to close the other arm just to try to get to their shoulder. Instead, keep all of this connected through. Find a way to move that does not obstruct. soft, open, as best you can. For everybody, it's different. Gently easing open. Each point. Shoulders are soft, elbows and arms are soft, hands are softer. Your mind comfortably reaching in all the way through the tissues. As your tissues have been opening and softening, and your ability to connect through your hands to those tissues, and with your mind to those tissues is increasing, you might find a different kind of connection starting to form, a different level of awareness, different kind of understanding of that space running through the body, that membrane. Do you want that rug underneath your feet? Are your feet warm enough? You can also grab the jacket that I have there, put it beneath your feet. Warm feet are very important. Save your kidney chi. Otherwise, you're just dumping chi in to try to keep your body warm. No reason to waste your chi on something like that if you can just wear warmer socks or wear a jacket or something. Do you want me to plug that heater in next to you? Okay. Easing your body open. Softer is better. Remember to see if you can get all the way around to that place below the elbow, or excuse me, above the elbow from this angle. It's often cold and deficient. Even through these, I can still hear the crows and the ravens out there.
Wow.
The crows and the ravens this morning have been making a fuss. I assume there's an eagle floating around here.
There was, I thought.
You saw it? I got to go out and call to them, talk to them a little bit. I think I said something rude because they got really excitable, and one of the crows came over and checked me out. The ravens are too dignified. They just kind of look at me from a distance. And the crows come over and be like, "Hey, what are you saying? What'd you call my mom?"
I was literally going to say that. Would you call me that?
One of these days, I'll figure out the right accent.
It's a Brooklyn accent.
It is in mine too. Yeah. Open. Don't shut yourself off. Your posture is still open and clear, being supported from the inside, making space for your breath. Don't hold on to your breath.
It's so strange. In my mind, I only ever see you doing that arm.
It's really interesting.
It is.
You just tune out for the first whole half.
I'm like, yeah, every time. I'm like, I swear you started with that.
When you become deeply skilled, both arms become right arms. That's the deep secret. Scanning and noticing every square inch of your body as we go through this practice. Don't leave anything out. And if you find any areas that suddenly feel deficient or stuck or something not quite right is going on, then you want to spend extra time there. As we've been noticing that again with my ears today, I spent 3 or 4 times as long on the ears as I usually do, just because I noticed they feel a little bit cold or like they weren't warming up for some reason. And we want to always take the time to do that. Noticing that when I was making the facial circles, that there were a couple channels on my forehead that didn't feel like they were getting as warm, like my awareness wasn't penetrating into them as deep as feeling is. And so I put extra awareness in there, and then suddenly there was this flood of heat. Okay, just something was blocked. So I don't know why, but that's one of the great gifts of this set is you get to check in. Is it warm enough in here for you? Okay. Between the meditation and this, I always get really hot by the end of it, so I can't tell anymore what temperature it is. And during this part of it, when the palm turns up, you really let the shoulder blade sink down.
Yeah, I can't do that because I roll forward all the time.
Well, that's good practice. They go, yeah, because otherwise they tend to go that way instead of down the back.
Yeah, it's that thing like my low back is starting to open, but it's still tense a lot.
Yeah.
So there isn't that space for it to fall.
It's difficult. I don't think maybe they can't hear you. Sorry if you can't hear Mel very well. Mel's talking about how for the shoulders to release down the back evenly, it's helpful to have the lower back open and soft. Otherwise, there's no place for the shoulder blades to settle. And so it's funny how you have to get the shoulders open for the back to release, but the back also has to be partially open so that the shoulders can release. Yeah. It's this whole process. Letting your awareness sink deeper inside than it has before. If you can, at least beneath the navel, a little bit. You can go perhaps a little bit deeper. Maybe you can feel the inside of the abdominal wall. And then eventually, you can go even deeper than that toward the spine. And there's a place in there that usually at first the mind just skips past it because there's nothing there. But you can know it by the emptiness of it. There are other places that you put your mind there and they heat up right away or they push back right away. And this one we're looking for is usually at first just a void. And you let your awareness slowly learn to settle into the empty spot. And that's when the magic starts to happen. Somewhere between the navel and the spine. A little up, a little down, different for everybody, doesn't matter. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're very kind.
You're very matchy today.
Matchy? Slowly my wardrobe game raises a level. Next comes the fancy jewelry, some big sort of amulet, then I'll become the spiritual teacher. Dream catcher. Gracias, amor. Vielen Dank.
I have no idea what you said.
Oh.
Gesundheit.
Hi, German. Vielen Dank means like thank you very much. Danke,
Oh.
you heard danke.
Oh, danke. Yeah.
Letting everything settle, softening open around the breath. Earlier during the meditation, I kept looking down thinking in the camera like that the lighting was strange, and I was realizing that when I inhale, my shirt loses all of its wrinkles, and it was completely filled out. I was noticing like on my arms, like all of this filled out and everything changed shape, and then I'd exhale and all these wrinkles would appear throughout my shirt.
That's really cool.
So
I feel like it's kind of like that in my body as well. Oftentimes when I exhale,
oh,
it's where the space hasn't
they haven't filled up yet. Yeah, that's right. And it's maybe worth saying that that's actually an okay stage. You just want to make sure that you continue to make room and then nourish your chi, and then the spaces fill in. Yeah, you just have to let them be empty, because otherwise we try to fake fill them up with tension. So if somebody wants to go back to the beginning of the video at some point later, and you can tell me my breath respiration based on my wrinkle rate. Wrinklespiration.
ZhiCheng does say we do this to get the starch out.
To get the starch out, that's right.
Have you told people about that metaphor yet?
I don't think so. How? I don't know. You want to wear my headphones and you can tell them?
No, you don't.
I don't want to steal your good story. The great and wonderful Master ZhiCheng has all kinds of fun metaphors that he's collected over his lifetime. He's very careful about his language. And he'll often tell stories about how we soften. For instance, when we do this closing movement, our tissues are soft, and it's not just our clothing that settles, but our tissues, the soft tissues settle in this same way. We start to develop enough space and movement through all of the soft tissue that there's this sense of things moving around and settling because we make so much room inside. And the only thing that stops that from happening is this sort of stiffness. And like within our clothes, I don't know if people do it these days, but it's an older thing that people would starch their clothing, their jackets and things would get really stiff. Do they still do that?
Sorry. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I've read about it in older books and things, you know, the 50s starched poodle dresses and things like that. And so I don't know if they're like spraying potato flour or something on them, but so people's clothes would get stiff, and so they would no longer move down. It would be like a cardboard box sort of settling instead of this soft, gentle movement. And our fascial lines, by the way, release this way. They feel like this. When they're bound up, you can feel them sort of pulling across in these directions. And so we want to, as Master ZhiCheng was always telling us, take the starch out. Soften, open, be gentle. We re-moisten things with our the blood flow, the warmth of our hands, the warmth of our heart. This gentle, friendly quality is part of that which nurtures. It's just what's left when all of the weird judgment and noise that we have, tension, is removed. We're just naturally friendly creatures. And you let that come to the front, and that is healing. And again, not because we're adding it any more than we're trying to add the softness. We're taking out the starch. We're removing the mental and emotional tension. And what's left is stillness, peace, kindness, softness. And then in that space, like Mel was talking about, that you may or may not have heard, the space opens up. There's room inside once those things are gone. And sometimes at first it feels empty, like you can collapse into them because the structures of tension that have been holding them open are gone. And you just want to let them be like that. You want to let them be sort of weak and unstable because you've removed all the old things that held them open. And during that time, you want to be very gentle. So this is true emotionally as well. Oftentimes as we remove blockages, those sort of mental emotional crutches that we've had for a long time, styles of thought and concepts and belief structures and dogma and just things that we knew to be true when we were kids. And when those beliefs start to go away, and we've all experienced this in some form or another, those beliefs start to collapse, and suddenly we're left with what's just true. And sometimes that makes us feel very unsteady and fragile. But if we just allow ourselves to be vulnerable and unsteady and be fragile, but be gentle with ourselves, then what happens is resilience and a different kind of strength builds in. And that takes time. And it's the same thing energetically, physically, it's all the same. We're not that complicated. I know everyone's got stories. What's that?
Do you want the light on?
I don't think so. Do you want the light on?
No, I was just noticing it's a little dark on my
Oh.
camera. It could just be my.
I think it's just yours. But if you like to turn it on, I just know it changes the colors because it's a warm light. It also takes the backdrop away for people a little bit because this becomes more reflective.
Yeah, I think it's just
Yeah. Even in the evening, the Tai Chi classes or the Qigong classes, I'll often leave the lights off and just let myself be a little dark because then they can see. Because they prefer the scenery to having to look at my ugly mug. Appreciating the trees over the cheese. I'm part of the scenery. Softening, letting your awareness soak in.
You can watch your Tai Chi class. Do you want to mention the playlist?
Oh yeah, Del, you're already part of Patreon, so if you want to watch my Taiji classes, they're on there. I keep finding out that people don't really know how to use their Patreon very well. It's this great little site with all of my videos collected and things. So lots of video collections. There's a whole collection just of a memory method that I've been putting together to help people memorize the form. There are whole collections of all the group classes, Qigong things, Taiji classes. Only a month or two's worth, but there's quite a lot of them now. There's collections of my Guqin playing, my Chinese study classes, collections of these massage series. What else is on there? Tons of stuff. Snake and Turtle, the whole teaching curriculum for Snake and Turtle, so that people learn.
Taiji classes are in a collection titled Taiji.
Well, the one of them is called Learn the Form, and that's open to the public for the people who take my classes in, like in San Diego and those places. And then group classes, there's a bunch of Taiji, links to Taiji and Qigong and various things like that.
That's the collection.
Maybe, so I'm not sure what he wants to watch. Yeah.
Taiji classes.
Yeah.
The ones you just mentioned.
That's right.
Where you keep the lights off at night.
Oh yeah. That's in the group classes one. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, and we should spend just a moment being quiet here. Settling. Deep and settled. Continuing to allow your whole physical frame to be open along all the channels. And if these lines in the front and the back that we talked about, the ones that run around the middle, are open and free, then there's a space that opens in the middle. It becomes easier for your awareness to soak inside, as long as you're allowing your awareness to slow down a bit. But remember that you don't want to put your mind inside. Don't push it in there. Don't hold it with your mind. That just forces your chi to your head. Instead, you have to find a way to let your mind settle and just soak into the body, like the heat from your hands. Your breath fills the space. Just be easy. It might be worth doing as well if you go a bit below and to the side of the navel. I'll open up a little bit here. So here's my navel, here's my pubic bone. If you were to divide that distance in half, more or less, and just go off to the sides of the abdomen, and then make gentle circles over that point. This is useful for anybody to help soften the sides of the abdomen, but in particular for humans that might be suffering from menstrual discomfort. There's a couple of very important organ structures in this area that we also want to relieve lines of stress around, letting your awareness soak into the tissues in this point. And this is useful for people also who don't menstruate because we still have abdomens. Both directions. And if, as you allow this area to warm and release, if you notice this feeling of easing, loosening, and if this feels particularly good to you, then you can include this depending on the time of month, especially before any pain starts, but it's probably good to do it every day. And so this is the point that's, my center of my palm is over the point, more or less halfway between the navel and the pubic bone. But most people that have ovaries and structures in hair can kind of poke around and feel right where it is for them, because it's a little bit different on everybody, these little floating things. So you want to find those points, center the Lao Gong point over them, and then allow the qi to soak into that point. Very useful. A little cat's walking down here. Isn't it pretty? It's very fluffy. Heard us talking about it. We had a couple monastery cats that died a couple years ago. We have so many wild animals around here. It's amazing. They lived for the decade that they were here. And then after a year or two of their absence, a new monastery cat has moved in. Doesn't let us talk to it, but we see its little gifts around. I wonder if that's also what the crows and the ravens were talking about. Whenever Boots would wander around, you could always hear the birds letting you know where it was. One of the things that we like to study up here at the monastery is bird language. You connect with the local inhabitants and can discover a lot of what's going on in the forest around you if you just listen. In fact, the guy that I uploaded the interview for yesterday, Senor Nate Summers, he is a well-known instructor of bird language. This house or cabinet? Okay. I assume there's all kinds of fun things living in the roof of cabinet. We have a very small building that people come and stay and meditate in for periods of time. A little cabin in the woods. Its roof is covered in thick moss, and people love that it's disconnected and away. And that includes the little forest creatures. Sometimes when we have practitioners coming and living here and training for months or years at a time, they'll live in the cabin. Whole body soft and open. Remember that no matter where we're working, or the posture that we take, we want to constantly be through. We never obstruct anything. We don't want anything falling asleep or feeling sore. Through and nourishing, comfortable and stable. Find a way. How does it feel? Reminder to keep your hands soft, your breath open. Avoid starting to try to do stuff. Just be here. Be still. The form is happening. Just like in those videos I mentioned, playing the qin or working on Chinese calligraphy or something. You simply allow yourself to be present without trying anything, without picking up a sense of self and a future and ambition and self-judgment and hesitance and all of those identity things that just get in the way. Instead, we just are here doing the practice, and there's nothing else. The practice is happening to you. The part that you work on is presence and stillness. This is the place that you develop presence and stillness, softness, kindness, and community. That's why we appreciate you coming here, Del. Community is important. Chris is off today. He is studying and learning from a doctor of Chinese medicine right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He found somebody in his big city. His credentials looked good, so he went over.
That's great.
It's very good.
Yeah, he's diving in deep.
It's very good. So
Oh, there he is.
there he is. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to be psychic. Remember to open the bottom of your foot. And now that we're getting softer, you can move your toes around a bit. You can help flex and move the bones in your foot that tend to get crunched together, if that's an area of difficulty for you. I spent some years constantly working on my feet to get them to open back up. After some years of practice here, my shoe size actually changed quite a lot. Pretty cloudy day. Surprisingly warm. Can you see all the red in the trees starting to come out?
Yes, I was noticing the birds over here.
Here in Washington, the color of the spring seems to be red. Remember that the main focus today is on keeping the various channels and vessels open and free no matter what posture we're in. So even as I fold here, whether we're sitting on the ground or sitting in a chair, your spine stays open and full and long all the way to the top of the head. Also the front of the body, the center of the front of the body, we don't compress. That central channel stays open. All of the channels along the arms, the legs, stay through and connected. And that belt vessel through the center that we tend to be folding around, we keep that sense of opening, that distance between the hips and the ribs, because all of this lengthens in both directions. So even that doesn't close. Full circles all the way up to the tops of the hips. I'm just putting my hands here. You can see this rotation happening here. But as much as you can, you want your legs to be soft, musculature to be soft and loose and free. Extending all the way around, using your feet and your toes a bit. Hearing the crows. I have to turn these things onto aware mode so that it lets me hear. It has two settings, so I can either shut out everything or it lets everything in. It's pretty nice. And again, I'll use my hands to demonstrate what I'm doing with my toes. Big toe and little toe. You want the foot to sort of move over the arch. So you're not just moving your ankle back and forth, but you're trying to actually get your foot to arch and change shape. One side and then the other. Letting your breath be gentle and open and slow, as well as gripping with the toes as though you extend and open your foot. The bones in the foot through here separate and spread the way your hands do, as though your feet are palms and you spread them open. Not with force, but through softness and lengthening. You're not trying to pull your toes back, but you're trying to lengthen them out. And you don't want to try to grip your toes to the bottom of your feet, but rather to lengthen your toes around. So the tops of your feet get long. In Taiji practice and a lot of the internal arts, we do this with our hands, where we're not closing our hands to it, we're lengthening our hands around to grasp something. And it's a different shape entirely. And the result is different. If I hold the sword, I don't close my hand around the sword. I lengthen my hand to fit around and become part of the handle of the sword, the pommel of the sword. So we soften our feet in all these different ways. Getting our feet as soft as possible. As we turn our waist, make sure that your spine is long. Everything is open. This space is lengthened and separated. The ribs are opened away from the hips. Again, not because you try to pull yourself separate, because that just causes problems, but because you release everything long. It's okay if that's difficult to do in the beginning. I just want you to be able to look for these exchanges. It's easier to do this one in a chair than it is in the the spinny things. So I'll take my headphones off, and to the normal clicking of the teeth, the circling of the tongue, the clicking of the tongue, and lengthening of the tongue, and swallowing practice, let's also include a little bit of jaw rotation. And so I know that for many people, this tension in the jaw can be a really big issue. And so you want your jaw to be able to go from side to side. I'm just putting my fingers here so you can see the movement. Side to side, also up and down. And if you can, try to release the base of it, the back part of it, down as well. And it can go forward and back. So it releases down from the joint and forward and back. So we do a side to side and a open and forward and back. And when I say open, it's not opening this way like a duck's mouth, but the jaw releases a little bit and then travels forward. And so we can include that, but it is as much a letting go of this area. We're not trying to flex and do things to a place. We're trying to let all of this go, to become part of all of this softness through here. Whenever you're ready, you allow your awareness to spread from the dantian. Let your awareness fill the inside of your body a bit more than usual. Spreading out all through that delicate membrane structure throughout your body, to the skin, to the space just beyond your body, as though you fill that space with your awareness as well, in all directions, and then to include the room that you're in, maintaining that sense of anchored structure in the center. We want this shift toward awareness resting mostly in the center of the body. We want this to become a permanent shift if possible, rather than constantly referencing ourselves through our thoughts in our head or the emotions raging in our chest. We settle into our body. Thank you very much. So today, because it's the second half of the set, we stepped up our expectations a little bit. The expectations a little bit more on the capacity to keep your body open during practice. There's a bit more of an expectation on the ability to let your awareness soak into your tissues, to feel what's going on, as well as the ability to deepen and settle your awareness as you practice with less distraction. These qualities that we are cultivating become easier and easier to nourish as we practice. And we want to just continue to let them expand and deepen and become more of what we're doing. More emptiness, more settledness, more ease. And we use all of the experience that we've gained so far in the first half, which is a lot of practice, to start to nourish the second half. We don't want to lose what we gained, but instead to build on it. So by the time we get to 100 days, we're in a completely different place than we were when we started. And that, of course, is the goal. Thank you again. And if there are questions, we can go through them. If Mel would like to curate.
Yeah, feel free to send any questions in. I'll take a look at what's already here.
I'm not sure how much they can hear you, so I'll have to repeat. This room is still too echoey for us to use the mic. It would just be drowned out. At some point, we'll get Mel her own little lavalier mic.
I'm not seeing any questions, but Del had a comment that, well, he had several comments that I think are really interesting. And one of them is, I'm finally beginning to see, or rather feel, the direct connection between letting go and relaxation. It's as much a phenomenon of body as it is mind.
That's right. Yeah, the relationship between letting go and relaxation and body and mind. Because body, mind, it's all one flow. The relationship between them, of course, we call qi. And one of the experiences of that qi is sensation. One of the experiences of that qi is emotion. It's all qi flow. And so the more that we can learn to find that integration and harmonization between the body and the mind, especially through the medium of letting go, the process of becoming soft, then the better our practice becomes and we move in the right direction. Otherwise, if we start to layer in control and ideas of what we want, ideas of ego, ideas in general, or layers of tension, or we try to technique our way through things, we actually just end up integrating more ego and more mess into what we are doing that we just have to undo later. And it's such a, it ends up being quite a trash pile that we'd have to undo. So just letting ourselves be present and still in our bodies is so powerful, and it saves a lot of time in the end.
And there's conversation around psychic ability.
Oh,
And,
between Chris and Dill?
Yeah, and Chris made a good point about how the body has to come first.
Yes.
Where the higher energy centers will mess you up, as he says.
Mess you up? Yeah, that's for true.
I want to speak to that at all.
Oh no, I mean that's something Chris has learned a lot about over the years. And Chris knows a lot, so if anybody has questions for him as well, he can really share and help people open up. And yeah, it's one of those big mistakes that people try to jump ahead toward powers, or what we're trying to do is cultivate things that are lasting and helpful. And so many things end up being traps. And I mean, it's super famous in all of the spiritual traditions that if you aim for the powers or the abilities or the things that you think you want, then it's just a trap and it ruins your whole progress. It's in all of the folklore and things for a good reason. And so the more that we can become free of the desire for anything, desire by itself is something we want to become free of, but specifically desire for around practice, how it should be, what we want it to be, what I want to get out of it and stuff, that actually is a poison to the practice. And it ends up being something that destroys what we love. It's the same thing if you had a relationship and from the relationship you wanted it to be a certain way, you wanted that person to give you a certain thing or to be a certain kind of person, they weren't allowed to be themselves, it would just destroy the relationship eventually. It's the same with everything that we do. We have to become free of force and trying to shape everything to our will, because life doesn't work that way. And all it does is bring suffering and destroy whatever it was we were working on in the first place. And so the sooner that we can learn that in life, the fewer times that we destroy the things we love. And I'm sure everybody's got stories about that, about their experience. It's not something that's a secret. And so the secret then becomes, how do we become free of that?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay. That's all right. And they can always ask again later if we miss it. Thank you for doing that. Mel's very helpful. Such a wonderful person. She's walking away. Thank you, everybody. It's really lovely getting to be here with everybody, the crows and the ravens and the cloudy sky and the rain. Plants are so happy for this little bit of rain that we get. We all get together and nourish. Enjoy your practice.